Today we're going to talk about the border crisis that's happening down on the border of mainly Texas, but all of Mexico and U.S. soil. And we're going to watch what is actually going on around that, because if you look at what's going on, it might hopefully explain some of this, what I like to call now the Biden riddle, because the Biden riddle has gotten so out of hand and people have wondered what the heck is going on. Why is he making these decisions? And there more to it. And I'm not saying that it is plain and simple, black and white, but let's actually try to figure out this riddle and get some pieces to it when we come back. Welcome back to the Coach Yaya channel. I am Yaya, and today we are talking about what is going on down to the border of America and Mexico. And clear back in January, if you look back, there is a clip that is the news reporter clearly asks if they are going to go down and they're going to deal with what is actually seeming to be letting illegals across the border. And Kamala Harris, you can look it up, she seems to not want to talk much about it. And it is something that they really have relabeled. And so after it gets pushed a little bit, she says, well, we've been to the border and it is not. And they keep pushing at the White House. This is not a crisis. It's just a situation. And so they're labeling it as a situation. Well, what exactly is a situation when you're talking about unprecedented numbers of people crossing the border? And it's not only just Mexicans coming into, like they always have. This has been a common thing that has gone on for not only years, but generations almost. It has been something that is common for people, it's a millennial, that as long as you can remember. And so they play it down. They say, no, it's not a crisis. It is a situation. Well, back to that January 6th, they get told, no, we went down to the border. We actually looked at this and it was not a big deal. It's just simply something we're looking into and don't overthink it. And then they got called out. They didn't go to the border. Why would you lie about that? Why would someone in that position get put on the spot where they know they're sitting and they start jumbling and fumbling around until you know that they are actually having to backpedal and realize it's a blatant lie? Why would you do that? So if they're going to call it a situation, it's going to really perk our ears up. People like me, who I actually do think that we have the right to see what's going on in our country, to know the truth. So what's the truth? Well, it's not as simple as you may think. It is something that has really been pushed to the feather edge. And this is not January, in case you didn't notice. It has been buried and put aside and has been really, really skirted. She wanted more to talk about. She wanted to push the subject more and more into just the January 6th. Oh, let's go back to something that was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and put it on Trump. Is there something that we see as a pattern here? Whenever they don't want to discuss or answer any kind of put on the spot, they just divert back to put the limelight on someone else. Why? Guys, this is where we can say a riddle actually begins. We're watching a riddle be born before our eyes. And the sad thing is, it's a scary one, because this is American economy. This is the safety of our freedoms, our country, and for the safety of us as individuals trying to raise our family here. You might ask, Yaya, how do you figure that this is such a big deal? Even the president, the White House, says it's just a situation. So you look at what else they send down there. They send down AOC. What does she do? She goes and actually not only tries to steal the limelight because Trump went down there, who was not the active president. And then they sit there and say, oh, this is tragic. She makes a big show. I think her and Meghan Markle should get together, because they could put their own next season of, what was that old show that had Paris Hilton and her little buddy running around? Because that's about how ridiculous this is. And we're sitting here trying to actually ask real questions to real concerns, and their only response is something as childish or to lie about things like that. Why? It's a riddle that is actually slowly being unraveled before our eyes. We're watching it, and quite frankly, I feel like I'm not the only one who says this is not something to mess around with. We got anything from transgender issues, realizing our government will lie to us. We have a president who doesn't seem to even know half the time what's going on. All he knows is he's supposed to cover for his son. He's supposed to say what they put on him, and all they have to do is say, hey, you know what, why don't you go out, and if you don't want to answer a question, we know you'll babble, so why don't you babble more about things that don't even make sense, things that just go on. I mean, just look up fails and you can see it's actually quite hilarious. I think all of us have got quite the kick out of it. Since he's been in presidency, Saturday Night Live is pretty much under. We know that because he is stomping their ratings on finding little memes and clips that make fun of. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about our country here. So if you want to see why they might actually unravel it, what do we always tell you? Don't go to what they're saying. Look for the things that seem to get popped up and disappear. Look for the things that seem to get addressed but never fully addressed, and you expect it to come out later. And by now you probably definitely realize that it's not going to come out later. It's just going to get buried, forgotten about, and then they're going to put it in, I don't know, maybe a glimpse of something that you find out is a lie later. Why are they doing this? They got these riddles, and the only true facts behind it is, well, they did have a major problem with Title 42. Those who are not familiar with Title 42, that is where Trump went in and he engaged Title 42, which, don't forget, Biden and most of the liberals had this huge problem saying how unfair it was. They had to have sanctuary cities because we are being unfair and immoral. Somehow it was immoral to let them in, even though we had major shutdowns. We could not go to church. There's churches in California who, even up to this year, are just getting fined, and you're talking in the millions, but yet to have a church congregate and to have them for their own neighborhood sit down in their own community and get together, that is actually terrible. Fine them, put them in jail, shut them down at all costs. Let's go spend our tax dollars to make sure that they do that. But how dare us have the nerve to sit here and tell someone who is not even a citizen that they can't cross the border illegally. My mind at first was just like, I can't even wrap my head around this. This is just so insane. You go, how are those apples to apples? They're not. They're apples to oranges, right? So then you watch this unfold, and we have watched it unfold for a long time now. And what are we watching unfold? The truth, but not the full truth. We're watching pieces of this riddle unraveling, and you have to sit back, and the sad thing is it takes you a while to realize there's actually some thought out insanity here, and it's scary. You need to become aware of it, because not only did people like DeSantis, not only did people like Abbott, there's so many people who are part of the government who did say this is not good. This is turning into an actual crisis, and we need to do something about it. So what does Texas do? They start trying to put their own policy in. Now, remember Title 42? The reason that could not get retracted, and the reason that eventually, sleight of the hand, all of a sudden you have something that was not liked by Biden's administration going, oh, we have these because we are dealing with it. They're using it now as if they are dealing with it, as if they are doing something about this crisis. They're not. They're sitting back, and then they just take the things that they were against not that long ago, and they pretend that that's what they're doing to correct it. And then it goes to the next step where you say, You have places like El Paso and the major border patrols who are sitting there saying, this is coming across at huge amounts of people that we don't have the police force. We don't have the financing. We don't have, this is going to turn bad. We all remember that. It was going to be bad. Oh, they're crazy is all you heard. Oh, those right wing, oh, they're just heartless and mean. And I can't believe anybody who would actually claim that they have a relationship with Jesus Christ say that they could turn someone away. Do you really believe that? And we've heard that from so many people. From AOC, the White House representatives. It has been printed to the point I'm sick. I'm like, if you really think that you are going to make two wrongs a right, and you're going to convince people that the second wrong was only because of the first wrong, what kind of reasoning? It's not reasoning at all. It's not even logical. So don't fall for that. Because those are the titles of all the headlines, and those are the headlines that take up the mainstream media. They've done a pretty good job at keeping us at bay on those. And so here we are trying to tell the truth, and they're sitting there saying, oh, so-and-so has a valid point. What kind of Christian? Now it's no longer, I thought we were supposed to separate the state from the church. Yeah, they've accomplished that. And here we are now using that to mix on the other side. It seems a little strange to me. I don't know about you. But then we're sitting here doing that, and you go, okay, what's your point? Because right now, I'm not seeing that there is a situation that is a major Christian-based thing. I'm seeing a border crisis. But they won't say it's a crisis. It is a situation. Screw that. It's a riddle. It's a riddle because here we go. Let's mix up a little more. And then they say, well, we got Title 42. They lie about being down there. And now they're sitting there saying, no. There's no danger. But they're covering up complete police forces or the border patrols getting told to back off. Until Texas tries to go in and they say, we are going to take care of this stuff. So Abbott goes in and says, we have the right to defend our country. You know what they're trying to get him with? That the Supreme Court, if they make a ruling, no matter what it is, even if it's allowing dangerous amounts of people across the border, that they go after the Americans, trying to protect the Americans. These aren't just public people. This is actually people who are in the government who say, I don't agree with this. And you know what? Their only response to that is to take it and say, if you don't back down, you're insurrection. That you are now becoming the enemy for protecting American soil. Next thing they do is they start calling it hate crime. They call it not, it went from insensitive to now it's a hate crime. It's racism. It's bigot. It's two-faced. It's not fair. Well, I'm sorry. I am not here to figure out which is fair, because there's rules. There is situations that sometimes it comes down to, this is put there in the Constitution. This is brought as something that they thought of, and it may not have been applied yet, and it may be a little bit gray, but play the safe side, because I am not going to sit down and actually pretend like it is never shown that it is always been a bad situation to just pour any amounts of illegal immigrants across borders and see a great result. It's never built an economy that way. It's always stressed it. But it's acting like, no, this is great, and they're taking those cheap shots. So you ask them what Title 42, it's not really applying. So what are you doing now? And you know what they say? Oh, well, we're getting ready to go under Title 8. Title 8 is basically going to fast track, and believe me, it's already happening. They're going to fast track legally and drag their feet on any kind of repercussion or any kind of way to undo what is really just a bad idea. They're going to say, well, let's just give them all as many as we can. And by the way, as of going, what are we, fast forward about 6 months now, and you say, as of now, there's a place that is an internet website, look up FAIR, F-A-I-R, and it actually is tracking how many people are crossing the border right now. Last I knew, it was around between 7,000 and 10,000 a day. Do the math on that. This is a crisis. Title 8 is not going to have a massive change. Matter of fact, let's not waste our time talking about, don't fall and waste your time getting into it with that. That's not going to help. That's not a solution. That is a trick, and that is something that is trying to get us to talk about it. So don't even understand what it is, just so you can basically realize, no, part of this riddle, that's not it. So what is it? We'll start looking into things that has been affected, looking at things that have not been put on the front line as long as it's been going. This is something that has been actually planned out for a long time. You ask, how do I know this? Because those who actually do remember, and you can go back and look it up, what was one of the first things that Biden did? He signed a lot when he first got to presidency. What was one of the very, very front-running things that he did when he got into presidency? He signed and tried to push through a new immigration law. He tried to redo the system, saying it was too old, it wasn't working. Well, with all of this going on right now, does it seem to be working, his new idea? And he will never back down. And he will never say this was a bad idea. You know why? Because he doesn't think it's a bad idea. He really actually does have a plan. And that is the scariest part. This is not him babbling. The lefts actually do want this. They can't directly tell you. So they turn into a riddle and they play this silly little game. But this is not a game to us. It's maybe a game to them at top, who actually have all these walls, the security, who actually have the situation ahead of time so planned out that they know how to prepare for it. But they're telling us, there's nothing there. What are you looking at? There's no major crime. There's no, and mark my words, this is going to have massive, it already is having massive impacts on how America is holding up. You might ask, okay, since this has been going on, he signed it that long ago, we didn't really even know it was a actual thing going on for almost 2 years. Who knows how many came before that? Yeah, it's going to be something that if you try to look it up, I have, it's very scary. It's very, very, I wouldn't trust them if they'll lie at that moment to your face, saying that they went down and they checked it out and they're playing these types of games. Why would they? Guide us into figuring out. It's like it's a big riddle for them. So let's look at what has happened meanwhile. We watched the stock market. All we could hear about is how Biden has made everything better. He is helping the economy. He is so well spoken on this. He's a godsend, apparently. I challenge anybody and everybody, I should probably post it, all the times that when they were doing all of their debates, how many times Trump told us and warned us, like he's somehow got a crystal ball. If you put Biden in, your gas prices are going to go up. He'll shut your oil down. He'll shut all of the mining. He will push those agendas, and you're going to watch those go bye-bye. He's going to push strong government. He's going to go in favor for giving out all these freebies. He will manipulate everything he can off of our backs to give to those who don't actually want to join what America is, the right to make a better life. He's going to sit there and push things that are like welfares, transgender. It is sickening. It is just absolutely sickening to sit there and watch how much this has come true and even got pushed further, and it's still getting pushed further. And this is a point where people like us at the Koshiyaya channel say everybody has a voice. You got to start stepping up. It doesn't matter if you're that person who is high on the list and is well known or just a nobody. We're just nobodies. But you know what we are? We're American citizens who care about fellow Americans, care about everybody. But there's a way to go about it. Doesn't make you a bigot. Doesn't make you some racist. Doesn't mean you don't like or have a major problem with illegal immigrants. You just want them to be able to live the American dream. What's the American dream? It's the place where you go, and it's not that it's a welfare. It is a place that allows opportunity. And opportunity is not welfare. You can look at the stats. Let's not even get into that. So you say, okay, stock market, it goes way up and then it starts crashing. It has been garbage, just exactly like Biden said, or just like Trump said. I apologize. Trump warned us of this. It was going to look really good at first. And it's essentially like you take one credit card and you pay another credit card and you say, yeah, we're good. And you go, you not only didn't actually pay that off, you're now paying 2 interest rates. Here we are, feeling the repercussions of that. So you take that and the inflation, the borrowing, the deficit is just all skyrocketing. So what do they got to do? They got to distract us. They distract us with racism, transgender, claiming that people have the right to do these things. And you go, you do have the right, but I don't understand why you're using that to get out of the sign get out of jail free card. Let's just call it out. Man up to these things. Guess what they do? They figure out how to look at it straight in the face and just continue lying. You're not getting called out. Matter of fact, this is ironically calling out people like Trump. They won't let it go. Remember when Trump was actually in office, it was all about Russia collusion, Russia collusion. It was that until you about said it waking up out of a sleep, because we heard it so many times. They're doing that with us right now, guys. Let's spill my coffee. They're doing that with us right now. Be awake to it. And it is truly, truly more going on. Like a duck on water. The whole saying's about the duck floats around smoothly and it looks like it's all smooth, but you should see what's going on under the surface. So with that being said, what else they got going in this Biden riddle about the economy? It is nothing but a joke and a riddle, because remember how they sat there and said that the economy is doing great. The dollar is actually just growing. When the dollar grows, it makes the value go down. Anybody who knows the economy knows this. You can't just go spend lots of money. That's not what makes wealth. And that goes with the country too. Like you can't just be like, oh my gosh, I spent everything in my savings and then I had to borrow from the bank. Therefore, I have more money flowing through and therefore I'm richer. It's much more complicated than that. Let's not get into that. But that's this kind of stupid things that everyone's like, oh, freebie. That's what I want. That's awesome. Give me another. Now I can get a big screen TV. I made a payment on the credit card so I can run it back up. They're saying all these silly things, but no guidance. Why do they not have guidance? If the government is trying to help people so much, why do they not guide them? They lie to them. Why do they not sit there and actually help people? They just get them addicted. A little more fentanyl's out here. We have all sorts of things. It's just nonstop addictions. It's being fed into more that is being distracted from, more that is being caught up in just ridiculousness, really. And so we're sitting here getting full of the racism cards, the transgender cards, how everything's not fair, how we're bigots. In the meanwhile, there's another major thing, the housing. My wife and I were looking to upgrade a little bit. It seemed like a good time at first, and we started getting housing. We said, this just doesn't feel right. There's more going on than we see, and this doesn't add up. And we really actually spent a lot of time. We're not economists, even though we have studied economy. We love getting into that stuff. We don't blame people for not fully grasping the concept of this. When you say, well, why would they make the government push for housing is going good, rather than give the fair warnings? Right? These are stacking to where the warnings of this toppling starting to look more and more like the 06 or 08 crashing. Nobody really actually felt it till like 08, 2010, depending on where you lived. Luckily, I wasn't put in a spot. It's really fortunate, thank God, but it really did do a lot of damage. Have we already forgot? How did we forget? So what's going on with the housing? It went up until everybody's in denial. Why are we all in denial? In denial that the housing is crashing, that we saw it crashing. Like we saw it do the same pattern that happened when us millennials were young adults, probably a lot of us looking for homes. It really hurt, but apparently it didn't hurt enough, because we got here yet again another major thing. But why would they push for housing to be build it, push more? The economy was doing great. We'll give different loans. We're going to change loans. It got really, really dangerous. And nobody actually really seems to be that interested in talking about how this has put some of the biggest people on the Fortune 500 that are in housing. You got the Zillow, the Rocket, which used to be Quicken Loans. There's I think 4 at this point that you say they went from Fortune 500 to, if they didn't tank, they would make, in proportion of what their wealth was and how much of that they lost in this whole housing crash, they would make the Bud Light and Target look like they're doing pretty good. But no one wants to talk about it. Why? Because housing didn't put Dylan Mulvaney. It's a pretty major thing. That is what the highest, best way to look at generational wealth. That was worthy talking about. But now that it's actually crashing, nobody actually wants to talk about that. We want to say racism, blah, 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 over and over and over. But now that this is happening, oh, don't talk about it. Why? It's a bigger part of a bigger picture, guys. It's a riddle. It's not that crazy to say, did Biden's administration not only see this, but push this? Yes, well, why would they push? I don't want to sound like some conspiracy theory person, but the same time that housing was being pushed up as if nobody could see this. Where's Alan Greenspan when you need him, huh? Nobody could see this? You can't make the dollar start crashing. You can't make homes so expensive no one can even afford them anymore. What's going to happen? The same thing that always happens. It's going to bankrupt. So who gets these homes when this goes bad? It's going to go back into major banks. It's going back in these major, out of us as a public. It's going to take legally and put it away. And why would they want that? That's not good for anybody, is it? Except for, ask yourself this question. I'm not saying this is in any way a fact, but as the dollar crashes, immigrants are coming in, crime is going way up, stock market is going, this has all been a bubble that is going bigger, and about to go. Where are we going to put these immigrants? How are we going to have a way to take a situation, let it get so far out of hand? We have to go to the government to balance it back out. Who do you think is going to actually get all those major votes, be likened by, and who's going to actually come into this country and say they changed my life, and I see how much they have helped when I was in need, but I just don't really like them. No, they're creating loyal fans, and they're doing it in masses. It's not a coincidence. It's not a mistake. And this isn't the end of it. This is a slow simmer, just like it was from the late 90s, early 2000s, going into 2006. There was many, many, many people who actually were in question, but guess what? The government shut them up, and it hurt bad. This is bigger. I promise you this is bigger. I promise you you're going to think that we're crazy. I want this to be a situation that you look back on and you say, I did something about it. I actually went and I checked into it, and I actually didn't get the wool pulled over my eyes, and I actually went and stood up and blocked it. I saw that this was the reality. These are things that if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, even if it's not a duck, it's still a bird. Let's not get caught up in just these exact opposite arguments that are just wasting our time. I personally think if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, let's just assume it's a duck until proven otherwise. This is everything to purposely crash our economy. And you say, well, why would they want to do that? Just like we were just saying, it's because they are trying to take the economy out of our hands and get the majority of these people who will technically become American citizens in masses. They're creating their own fans. They're creating an avenue and a funnel. And guess who's going to pay for it? Do you really think that this is going to be paid for by anybody except for who? The tax dollar. Who is taxed? Us. Americans. Legal Americans. Off our back again. So you have taken away the situation of saying that you're falling out of popularity. You've now tried to balance that out. You have openly got people to say, oh, this is racism. So no longer can, and nobody can do the race card because they're so scared that they're going to be canceled. They're going to be just deemed as some bigot who can't get their face on any platform anymore. So they basically get told, shut up. And then you're going to take the dollar and you're going to force us to do something about a crisis in economy, and just the entire time saying, no, it's not a crisis. And then you're going to allow stocks. You're taking away everything that makes the American dream. And there is one way to recover this. Stop it before it actually gets out of hand. And it may be a hard lesson. It may hurt a little bit, but I promise you this will actually be something that is worth doing. It's like worth being sore going to the gym. I promise you, it may suck at the time, but it is so worth it. It is so needed. The benefits will always outweigh just seeing what happens. Because when you see what happens, it never, ever turns out some miraculous better. And so watch the housing, watch the economy, watch the inflation, watch all of this struggle. And by the time we figure it out, it is already in a spot. It is going to take us a little bit of a sting. But have the fortitude to sit back, watch it, dig into it, warn others about it, even if they think that you are just bizarre and crazy as what you're hearing on the news. Do actually take enough fortitude to dig into it, and then hopefully this will be a spot that they say, man, America stands together, and they have what they have known, a generation of the greatest generation, part 2. I don't know. But no one else is going to do it for us. It's not going to be our government. It's not going to be anybody who is under our government or what we see as leaders. We have to become leaders in this, because no one's going to fix it for us, because it's hurting us. It's like your right side of your body eating the left. Doesn't make any gosh darn sense. You just got to get it stopped. So let's work together. Let's actually become aware of this and really actually put whoever Biden and all the administration put them on the spot to say, no, we need some answers. We need answers, and we actually need them to not get away with just flippantly throwing this aside. So until next time, thank you for watching. I am Yaya. We love comments. We love this. Is a lot to unravel. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Set your comments if you have anything to say, because right now, like we said, this is a riddle that we got to work on together. So there's only one way to finish a riddle, and it's to start. Until next time, we'll see you again.